Morning lads, welcome back to This Week in F1, and this week F1 was in Shanghai for the Chinese Grand Prix. Now it was a sprint weekend, which meant plenty of on-track action, but the first bit of action actually started just off the track, with some of the runoff grass catching on fire during FP1, causing a red flag, and James Vowles was gassed that it wasn't one of his drivers that caused it this time, before realising there's still the rest of the weekend for Sargent to fuck it into the barrier.
Don't you dare disobey me, Coraline! Ah!
After FP1, we of course had sprint qualifying, and it was looking like another Max Verstappen whitewash before the rain came in and jumbled up the order, meaning Lando took pole, Hamilton in second, and Alonso on third.
Crikey.
Now this was not without controversy though, as when Lando was coming round the final corner to start his lap, he went over track limits, however wasn't penalised.
Wow.
And for once, fair play to the morons wherever they sit, the stewards actually got it right.
Since when?
So, on some tracks, if you go over the limit on the final corner before you start your lap, you gain an advantage, which means you should have your lap deleted. But China is different, as when Lando went over the limit, he went onto the gravel. In fact, giving himself a worse exit, meaning he would have been faster if he kept it within the limits. So there was no point in giving him a penalty, because he'd already been a detriment to himself.
Yeah, shut up!
So with a front three more exciting than prime Liverpool, we got underway, and almost immediately Lando fucked it, trying to hang it round the outside of Hamilton through the insanely long turn one, going straight into the runoff, dropping down to 7th. Alonso just about managed to keep Verstappen at bay through turn 1, which lasted long, as did Hamilton's lead, and any hope that Verstappen wasn't going to dominate the entire weekend and make my already early start even more miserable.
I'm heavily depressed.
But when things are looking bleak, there is always one team you can count on to bring a bit of spice back into the race. And that is, of course, the Stumbling Horses. As on lap 15, Sainz decided he had had enough of his fellow Spaniard and switches back on Alonso before Alonso sends it back at him into the next corner, forcing them both wide, sending Perez through and Alonso all the way back to 6th in the blink of an eye.
Oh, that's not gone well.
But it didn't end there, as Leclerc goes for the move on Sainz into the hairpin, and Sainz forces him wide, causing them to keep scrapping into turn 1, where Leclerc's almost sideways, yet somehow the Monegasque is the one that comes away with the position, and then he proceeded to have a moan on the radio about Sainz fighting him more than others, acting as if Carlos actually gives a fuck about Ferrari's interests after being kicked to the curb. It's just...
I am stupid.
Now, of course, Verstappen won the race. Hamilton did take an impressive second place and Perez finished third. But unfortunately, though, for Mr. Hamilton, that was the peak of his weekend, as just a few hours later, he was knocked out in Q1 of regular qualifying.
It's time to go!
The rest of qualifying went pretty much as you would expect, with a Red Bull front row and Alonso just behind, and after a relatively early start for a Sunday, the lights went out and Alonso swings his massive bollocks round the outside of the two Red Bulls, almost getting both of them before using his big racing brain and realised there is not one single point of going after Verstappen.
What's the point? I can't take it anymore.
And after the first lap commotion calmed down, Perez did the inevitable and got past Alonso, as did Norris, thanks to Alonso using his tyres to try and keep a Red Bull behind him, which was not so good of a use of his big racing brain.
I may not have a brain, gentlemen.
And then, of course, it settled into the keep the gap, save the tyres phase of the race.
Boring.
Then came the first round of pit stops, which saw Red Bull do a double stack, with both pit stops being under 2.2 seconds. Alpine, on the other hand, did not.
Oh yeah, that's hard to see. Gasly.
And then things got a bit interesting as race control had a meltdown trying to deal with Bottas's car.
I don't know what I'm doing!
They first decided to just put out double yellow flags, which was stupid because it should have been an automatic virtual safety car, as Valtteri was just standing by his car like 10 meters from the track. They eventually did bring out the virtual safety car before then turning it into a full safety car because Valtteri's car was stuck in first and they couldn't actually move it, even though they had about 59 people there just shoving it.
Are you even pulling? Are you on my team? Just represent, pull.
All right, let's go.
Now, of course, the safety car caused all sorts of shit within the pit lane, as Red Bull pulled off an outrageous double stack, with both pit stops being under 2.1 seconds.
How, in the name of all that's holy, did you do that?
What's the fucking point, man? I swear to God. Lando took second, to be fair to him, after he dragged out his first stint incredibly, and Perez dropped down to fourth behind Alonso.
Lando, we can be world champion, I said.
Then the safety car came in, and everyone got away smoothly. No, of course they didn't, because Lance Stroll decided during the safety car looking at the back of the car in front of him was a stupid idea, and instead decided to get a look at the underside of Ricciardo's car. You know, he wanted to see what was going on under that racing bull.
I know he's sick of my money, cause every time he calls, he wish that he comes to me. Sitting in my left, right pocket, watch this, these niggas.
Now, to get under a Formula 1 car, you kind of have to just drive into the back of it, which then caused Ricciardo to charge forward, destroying the rear diffuser of Piastri and pretty much ruining the rest of his race, which then caused Australia to decide that Lance Stroll needs to be euthanized. Probably.
He has to go, blood. He has to go, blood.
But the tomfoolery didn't end there, as Magnussen completely fucks a move down the inside of Tsunoda and knocks him out of the race.
Magnussen is and will always be stupid.
And of course, all of this brought out another safety car.
Another one.
The second safety car eventually peeled into the pit lane after staying out for another random lap, and Perez got past Leclerc.
I am stupid.
Alonso had to come into the pits after a strange strategy call from Aston Martin to put him onto softs under the first safety car, but he drove an excellent recovery to put himself in P7 after a little moment trying to get past Hamilton.
Nothing, just an incident.
And of course, it all ended with a Max Verstappen win, Norris second, and Perez rounding out the podium.
He's done it again!
So what does this all mean for the championship? Well, Red Bull and Verstappen increased their gap over their respective championships, while Perez's P3 keeps him firmly in second. Lando's incredible race gives his points total a boost, but Ferrari's damage limitation means they keep firmly ahead of the papaya outfit. And the most important result of the race, P10, went to Nico Hülkenberg, so well done if you predicted that.
Nico Hülkenberg.
Now on to Moron of the Week. And this week, Moron of the Week goes to Swervin32. And they say that Sainz constantly races dirty against Leclerc, using Monza and China as examples. Newsflash for anyone who has never watched an F1 race. That's not dirty racing, that's just hard racing. And it's a brilliant watch. Get over yourself and get your hand out your trousers. Now, on to the news, and Adrian Newey has reportedly said that he wants to leave Red Bull, apparently due to Horner's dodgy text messages.
I don't know. I think that's a bit dodgy, mate.
At this point, the most likely place for him to land is Ferrari, but Aston apparently have an outside shout for the in-demand man. And the other big piece of news this week is that Nico Hülkenberg has signed for Sauber next season, kicking off what looks to be a mental season for driver transfers.
Hülkenberg.
In a bit.